What's happening, fam? L.A.R. movement still moving. Book is entitled Lessons from a Non-Custodial Father. At Amazon, Kindle, and Create Space. Link will be in the description box below as usual. Go get it. PayPal link that also asked me to put it up, so I put it up. Thanks everybody for supporting. But this video though, this video is entitled Dysfunction Can Create Discipline. If you came up in hard environments or had dysfunctional circumstances, some people go in the direction of they just fall into it, and other people are the complete opposite. The dysfunction creates a certain amount of discipline because you see what not to be and what not to do. So I'm going to use these examples, right? You got, say if you've been around people who are alcoholics, their dysfunction and you seeing them as a child or drunk and the way they act when they're inebriated and the things that they do, it might turn you off completely to be disciplined enough to not put alcohol in your body or put it in your body very rarely. Like you don't need life doesn't stress you out to the point that you need to drink, and it gives you other outlets. That's not one of them. Because when you see somebody act a certain way, they may get violent, they may just get lazy, they just may be just out of it all the time, or you start to lose respect for them as an adult. You don't want to be an adult that looks like that. So it'll cause you to say, you know what, I'm not touching that stuff. And that's a discipline. Same thing with drugs. If you grew up in a household where you see a lot of drug use, you're not really gonna that dysfunction of what drug use does and how it can affect that person and the other people around them. You're like, no thanks. You mess around, like when I was a kid, my friends was in the streets and I wouldn't sell it because I was around it before them. I knew I was around cocaine when we was doing the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s in Sesame Street. I didn't like it. I didn't like how people acted. I didn't like the lifestyle. I didn't like none of that. So that was the discipline of, friends who grow up and smoke weed ain't that bad. Yeah, you haven't seen potheads like I've seen potheads. So it created a discipline. Now, to this day, I didn't drink till I was in my mid-20s, and I probably smoked cigars every blue moon starting in my late 20s, early 30s. But even that's in moderation. Like, I'm one of those people that could buy a bottle of alcohol and it'll sit there. But there are other people who are more extreme than me that, they just not touching it ever, period. They're not buying it, they're not touching it, whatever. And because of the dysfunction created a discipline. Some people grow up poor. And see, some of y'all don't know what it's like, like Shannon Sharp was talking about, eating squirrel and whatnot. See, some of y'all wasn't poor enough to make a meal out of scraps. Eating hand-me-down food. You know what I'm saying? Things that you would just think normal people weren't eating. That poverty creates a discipline that you want to work yourself out of the situation that you're in. And it creates a discipline to where you want to get somewhere and never go back to where you started. So that dysfunction definitely creates a discipline. Some people can understand that. Some people cannot. It just depends on, how some of us lived. And, some of us understand, some of us don't. The same thing goes with violence, and this goes two ways. If you grow up around in a dysfunctional atmosphere around violence and you're a child and you feel like you can't protect yourself, it might make you disciplined enough to be a fighter or a soldier. because you want to protect yourself, but also you want to protect other people. So that dysfunction might give you a certain discipline that you know you have to get to a certain space to be the protector of people. And on the other hand, it can make you very passive, and you do your best to understand conflict resolution and stop things before they happen. Depends, but your discipline is to avoid conflict and chaos in general. So you can become a good negotiator like that. The other thing, sometimes it could be a dysfunction of poverty, but no, it can't really be a dysfunction of poverty. People who are bad spenders can make you be disciplined in your spending. When you see somebody always robbing Peter to pay Paul, they're always in a financial jam because you're watching them be impulsive and they can't delay gratification. And because they can't delay gratification and they gotta have it, and you can't take it with you mentality has them suffering week after week, month after month, year after year. You become disciplined fiscally. You start putting away money, saving money, put money to the side, making extra accounts, because you may never, you don't want to be as stressed out and as tense as these people that who are fiscally irresponsible, who've taught you that they could look fly and go home and the lights are off. You don't want to be that. So you'd rather look regular, and have a nice crib with the nice lights. So that's that dysfunction can create a certain discipline. Sexually, if you see somebody who has a lot of kids, you gotta, or they got a lot of drama in their life because they are too sexual, or they, if you've seen somebody catch an STD or die of AIDS, or you seen them started withering away from AIDS, it'll make you think. Same thing with, like, my parents had me when they were teenagers, so I didn't start having sex till I was 20, just out of the fear of having a teenage pregnancy, to be perfectly honest. Plus there was a lot of cock blocking going on back with my girlfriend, so I appreciate all their friends and family members. Thank y'all very much. Mother. But anyway, but I didn't think about it, but I did have a family member who died of AIDS, and I didn't know they had AIDS at the time. But I was like, hey, look sick, what's going on with such and such? But they wouldn't tell me. I was a kid, but I was a teenager, so they could have told me, but they didn't want to tell me, basically. And I was going back home visiting family, and I get it. Rest in peace. And that's the thing about it'll teach you to be disciplined sexually, because there's nothing's wrong with having sex, but it's the unprotected part that's getting people caught up. So it'll make you kind of like, oh, okay, all right, Same thing with being a player. It'll make you slow that down too, because of all the pitfalls of being a player, right? I don't want to say this one, but the dysfunction of the street life will make you disciplined enough to be square. When you see how early people die, how people live, how people are attracted to something that's killing them, how people, it'll make you disciplined in in a way of you want to live because you see most people in the streets are scared to live. And that might sound crazy to some, but a lot of times people use the streets as a way to fulfill their death wish. You know, you put them out of their misery. You're not going to do it yourself, so you engage in activities that put you in risk to lose your life. So coming up in that type of dysfunction, you're like, you know what? I got to get out of here. Because, you know, sometimes that is also a way out of poverty and dysfunctional neighborhoods. And, you know, that's the downside of it that you know, I don't like getting into. But this is how dysfunction creates discipline in these certain ways. You know, or if you see people who are lazy and they never go anywhere, and you realize I need to outwork people like that because I don't never want to be where they're at. You know, you see people who are cool, and cool doesn't get them anywhere. It makes you not want to be cool. You want to be hard working. You know, you want to be made fun of for being a nerd because, you know, the nerds leave the neighborhood and the cool people seem to stay. So I'm gonna leave it right there, and y'all have a good one on this one. Peace.